जब मैं छोटी थी तो एक ज्योतिषी ने मेरे पिताजी को मेरी कुंडली बना के दे दी.
This Priyanka Gandhi Vadra speech is from November 2023 from Siddhi, Madhya Pradesh. She begins this anecdote with an astrologer drawing her birth chart and handing it to her dad when she was in her early teens.
उसमें मैंने पढ़ा कि कन्या के पास मंत्र सिद्धि होगी.
I bet you are asking the same question that Priyanka asked her dad, the late Rajiv Gandhi. What is Mantra Siddhi? We will let Priyanka herself answer that at the end of this video. But first, I must tell you 5 absolutely striking stories about the Congress Party's candidate for the Wayanad Lok Sabha bypoll. Stories that take the political gloss off arguably the most spontaneous politician from India's most famous political family. I'm Manish Adhikary, and you are watching First Things Fast.
इस चुनाव को जीत के जाऊंगी मैं यहां से.
In Indian politics, few names resonate with as much historical gravity as that of the Nehru-Gandhi family. In the complex play of legacy, expectation, public service, and controversy, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra stands as a fascinating case study of reluctance, resolve, and a return to destiny of sorts. She's finally going to fight in an election, something that most Indians had imagined her doing more than 2 decades back. As I began researching the story, I watched a lot of interviews and read copious amounts of literature on Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. But I found the interview that Priyanka gave to authors Pradeep Chibbar and Harsh Shah among the most interesting, the most revealing of her true self. The authors did this interview for a book they named India Tomorrow. It's basically a collection of interviews with politicians who the authors call the next generation of political leaders in India. So hat tip to Pradeep Chibbar and Harsh Shah for the stories that Priyanka shared with them a couple of years back. The first one goes something like this. It was 1984. Priyanka was a student at the Welham Girls' School in Dehradun. One day in the month of August that year, both Priyanka and Rahul, who was at the Doon school in the same town, they were abruptly taken out of their boarding schools due to a security threat.
My brother Rahul, he has been my ally through both the most beautiful and the most painful moments of my life.
The siblings started going to Delhi school when one day they suffered another security scare. This time, a suspected kidnapping attempt. A few days later, something very real and very tragic was about to unfold. On 31st October 1984, their grandmother, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, was assassinated. Priyanka was only 12 years old, Rahul 14. They now began living in the constant fear their father could meet a similar fate, Priyanka said. She would not sleep, for instance, until her dad got home every night. Then in 1991, their fear came true.
7 years later, when my brother was studying in Harvard University, my father was assassinated.
The date, 21st May 1991.
राजीव गांधी पहुंचे तो सुरक्षा घेरा तोड़कर धनु उसमें घुसी. उसने पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री को चंदन की माला पहनाई, उनके पैर छीनने के लिए झुकी और बेल्ट में लगा वो बटन दबा दिया जिसने राजीव गांधी समेत 16 लोगों की जान ले ली.
After her father's assassination, Priyanka said it took her many years to process her feelings of pain and anger. She would rarely speak about it to the media. But in recent years, as she has risen as one of Congress's key campaigners, she sometimes mentions that day in her speeches. The dramatic music you will hear in the background of the next clip was added by guys in the Congress social media team.
मेरे पिता की शव यात्रा 3 मूर्ति भवन से निकल रही थी. सामने भारतीय सेना की एक ट्रक थी, उसके ऊपर मेरे पिताजी का शव था. थोड़ी देर काफिला चला, फिर राहुल कहने लगे मैं उतरना चाहता हूँ. माँ ने कहा नहीं तुम उतर नहीं सकते. राहुल ने जिद की नहीं मैं उतरूंगा. मैंने माँ से कहा माँ उतरने दो. राहुल गाड़ी से उतरा, वो सेना की ट्रक के पीछे खड़ा होके चलने लगा और 3 मूर्ति से लेके कड़ी धूप में अपने पिता के जनाजे के पीछे पीछे पैदल चलते चलते यहाँ पहुँचा. इस जगह से कुछ 400-500 गज दूर यहाँ पर मेरे शहीद पिता के अंतिम संस्कार मेरे भाई ने. इस देश के लोकतंत्र को मेरे परिवार के खून ने सींचा है.
Now, Rahul and Priyanka, who had stopped going to a normal school since Indira Gandhi's assassination, were homeschooled until they went to college. Their education and social life was significantly impacted by the deaths in the family, according to Priyanka. Their movements were heavily restricted. They were only allowed for maybe an hour on weekends and could not visit the same place twice. There were numerous rules governing their lives. Priyanka felt pain and anger for several years.
my brother and I were shattered.
She later said it required a sustained personal effort covering everything from meditation courses to even a visit to the Vellore jail to meet one of her father's assassins, Nalini Sriharan, to find some closure. When Nalini was released from prison in November 2022, this is what she said about meeting Priyanka in jail.
Can you tell me how you felt when Priyanka met you? What was the emotion?
I pinched her. நிஜமாவே இது நடக்குதா அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு I thought it's not happening, but it happened. She was so very nice. Real angel she is.
When you search for Priyanka's speeches that have sort of gone viral on social, you notice a slight pattern. She's constantly defending her brother, sometimes going to the extent of rebuking their political rivals for doing it.
He is a man who was ridiculed for his courage and berated for his ideas, yet he never allowed himself to become prey to anger and hatred. He is someone who is abused daily by his opponents. His education is questioned, and yet he has the courage and the wisdom to stand up in parliament, walk over to the other side and hug those who abuse him.
While these videos may appear sappy and melodramatic to many like me, it goes without saying that the only true friend Priyanka had for a really long period in her life was Rahul.
और मेरे बड़े भाई इधर देखो, सबसे ज्यादा गर्व तुम पर है.
Speaking to the writers of India Tomorrow, Priyanka said Rahul was much calmer than her, much more far-sighted, and that they both believed in non-violence and honesty. But growing up, they were also at each other's throats all the time.
Let me tell you what it means to be a good brother, okay? What it means is that I'm doing these massive long flights. 1 second. I'm doing these massive long flights. And I'm going in a little helicopter like that, squeezed up, and my sister is doing short flights and she's going in a big helicopter. Okay, but I love her.
Priyanka said that because they had nothing else to do at home, she and her brother would constantly fight. And sometimes this would extend to official functions they would attend when the dad was the PM. I remember once when we were in Russia, Priyanka says in the interview published in India Tomorrow, they were all attending a function at a war memorial, most likely in Moscow. Mom Sonia Gandhi, Priyanka said, had to hold one of them so that they did not fight in public. Even today, she calls Rahul her best friend. While Priyanka may have finally agreed to fight in an election, she had always stayed just inches away from the thick of active politics, restricting herself to campaigning for her mother and her brother for several years. And the reason for that goes back to a Buddhist retreat she found herself in all the way back in the last century. The year was 1999. Priyanka was 27 and still struggling to come to terms with her father's death. Everyone wanted her to fight an election that year. Not to rely on someone else's opinion or advice, she said she was looking for a quiet place to do some rumination when a friend of hers said why doesn't she try a meditation retreat. She ended up spending days doing Vipassana at a Buddhist retreat and realized that she had to first resolve the anger and hurt pent up inside her since her dad's death. She also realized that the grand concerns in her head pushing her into politics were not so grand after all. So the electoral debut, it turned out, would have to wait another 25 years.
तो वो लड़की लड़ सकती है.
Now that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has officially thrown her hat into the electoral ring, putting an end to years of staying away from the public eye, only occasionally stepping into the spotlight during election campaigns, she's now going to be fair game for more strident political attacks. In fact, all the way back in 2019, BJP Sadhvi Prachi had called her Barsati Mendak. Prachi was alleging that Priyanka became politically active only during the election season, like the frogs during the monsoons. And Prachi may have been right to a certain extent as well. But Priyanka has faced far graver allegations over the years, especially those concerning her husband Robert Vadra. Which brings us to story number 5. This would be roughly around 2010. Just ahead of the Commonwealth Games in Delhi, the UPA 2 government at the centre and the Congress government in Delhi began facing a barrage of corruption allegations in the courts and the media. Some cases involved Priyanka's husband Robert Vadra. By 2010, just to remind you, Vadra's firms had acquired 29 high-value properties with a loan from a clutch of firms including DLF amounting to just Rs 80 crore. Then in October 2011, Arvind Kejriwal, who used to be an activist then, accused Vadra in a separate case of taking an interest-free loan of Rs 65 crore and heavy bargains on land from DLF in exchange for political favours. Now, there were other cases too, and the family name was constantly in the news. Concerned that all this would impact the lives of her children, Priyanka apparently called them one day and did some surfing on the internet. One of the first things they found was an article that said Priyanka's Italian grandmother was a KGB spy who smuggled antiques out of India. All three burst out laughing when they read this, Priyanka said. Another incident she mentions in that interview was about her son, who was apparently having a hard time in his all-boys boarding school. She went to meet him and gave him a rundown of the allegations and then told him what the truth was. This was her kids on election day this year.
Priyanka Gandhi Vadra's children who are voting, and it will be interesting if either of them is a first-time voter. They come from a family that has seen maximum ups and downs politically. They have seen their mother, while not engaging in a direct political battle, but constantly, of course, surrounded with whether it's as a star campaigner, political strategies. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has largely kept the children out of the spotlight.
Her supporters say Priyanka's entry into electoral politics will be a game changer. But as Priyanka Gandhi Vadra continues to navigate the complex terrain of Indian politics, her journey is going to be watched with keen interest and high expectations. Oh, and before I go, let me also close the thread on the astrologer story that Priyanka was recounting at the beginning of this video. Resuming with her having gone to her father Rajiv, asking him what did the Jyotish meant by mantra siddhi.
पिताजी के पास गई, मैंने पूछा पिताजी ये मंत्र सिद्धि क्या होती है? तो उन्होंने कहा कि मंत्र को साधने की जो क्षमता है उसे मंत्र सिद्धि कहते हैं। तो फिर मैंने पूछा कि सिद्धि क्या है? तो उन्होंने कहा जब साधना सिद्ध होती है, मतलब साधना सफल होती है, तब इंसान सिद्ध होता है।
If you found this video informative, please like, comment and subscribe for more updates. Thank you for watching First Things Fast.